Chapter 1, The Invitation. It was an unremarkable Friday evening when Jake received the message that would change everything. The text simply read, "Meet me at the old pitch. Midnight. Don't be late." The sender was unknown, but curiosity piqued. He couldn't resist. The old football pitch had been abandoned for years, a relic of a once thriving local club. Rumors circulated about it being haunted, tales of players who had vanished without a trace. Nevertheless, Jake had never been one to believe in ghost stories, particularly not after a few pints at the pub. As the clock struck midnight, he arrived at the pitch, the moon casting an eerie glow over the faded lines and overgrown grass. A chill swept through the air as he stepped onto the field, the stillness broken only by the rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. "Hello?" he called out, his voice echoing into the night. No response. The tension in his chest tightened. Just as he was about to leave, he heard it, the sound of a football being kicked. Jake turned, spotting a shadowy figure at the far end of the pitch, dribbling a ball with precision. "Hey! Who's there?" he shouted, stepping closer, his heart racing. The figure turned, revealing a familiar face, Mark, his childhood friend and once a talented footballer who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. "Jake!" Mark called, a grin spreading across his face. "You finally came." Jake felt a mixture of relief and confusion. "Mark! I thought you were gone. What happened to you?" "I can't explain everything now," Mark said, his voice grave. "But we have one last game to play. Just like old times." Chapter 2, The Game Begins. With the moon high in the sky, casting an ethereal glow on the pitch, Jake found himself drawn into the game. Mark set the ball down and motioned for him to join. "It's just you and me, Jake. One last match." "Are we seriously doing this?" Jake asked, half excited and half nervous. "What about all the stories? You disappeared for years." "Forget the stories," Mark replied, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. "It's just a game." As they kicked the ball back and forth, the air grew heavier. The thrill of the game ignited old memories, laughing until their sides hurt, the sound of cheers from friends, the sweet smell of grass after rain. But there was something unsettling beneath the surface. The pitch, once just a field, felt alive, the grass whispered secrets, and shadows danced at the edges. Jake found himself glancing over his shoulder, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching their every move. "Let's go for a goal," Mark shouted, his enthusiasm infectious. They moved towards the makeshift goal, and Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. He kicked the ball, sending it soaring into the net. But as they celebrated, the atmosphere shifted. The night grew colder, and the wind howled like a banshee. Mark's expression turned serious. "We need to be careful. This place. It's not what it seems." Before Jake could respond, the lights of the pitch flickered and then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Panic rose in Jake's chest. "Mark! What's happening?" Chapter 3, The Darkness Within. "Stay close," Mark shouted, but his voice echoed strangely, reverberating like a distant memory. Jake's heart raced as he felt the encroaching darkness close and around them, thick and suffocating. "Can't you turn the lights back on?" Jake asked, desperation creeping into his tone. Mark's face was grim. "It's not the lights we need to worry about. There are things here that don't want us to play." Jake's mind reeled as he struggled to comprehend the situation. The pitch had always been a source of joy, but now it felt like a trap. Shadows crept along the ground, forming shapes that seemed to reach for him. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. Jake could see his breath, a fog of fear. "We have to leave," he shouted, but Mark stood frozen, his gaze fixed on the darkness that swirled around them. From the depths of the shadows, figures emerged, ghostly forms of players long lost to time. Their hollow eyes and twisted expressions sent chills through Jake. "They're trapped," he whispered, realization dawning. "Just like you were." Mark nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. I thought I could escape them, but the game. It calls to them. They need a player. The figures lunged forward, their whispers echoing in Jake's mind, urging him to join them, to play forever. No. He screamed, backing away as the weight of despair pressed down on him. Run, Jake. Mark shouted, breaking through the spell. I can't hold them back much longer. Chapter 4, The Choice. With adrenaline surging through his veins, Jake turned and sprinted toward the edge of the pitch, his mind racing. He could hear the whispers growing louder, drowning out his thoughts. Join us, join us. Mark's voice cut through the chaos. You have to break the spell. You have to leave before it's too late. But the figures were relentless, reaching for him with skeletal hands, their eyes pleading for a player to join their eternal game. Jake stumbled, feeling the cold air wrap around his throat, choking him. Jake! Mark yelled, fighting against the spectral forms. Remember who you are. Remember our games, the fun, the freedom. Don't let them take you. Jake closed his eyes, remembering their childhood, the laughter, and the thrill of every match they had played. This is not how it ends. He willed himself to remember the joy of the game, the reason he loved football in the first place. With a surge of strength, he pushed through the darkness. I refuse to play. He shouted, his voice a defiant roar against the encroaching shadows. The figures recoiled, shrieking in frustration. You can't escape. You're one of us now. No. I'm not. Jake declared, forcing his legs to move faster. He sprinted towards the exit, the goal in sight. With every step, the whispers faded, the darkness retreating as he broke through the threshold of the pitch. He felt the cool night air wash over him, pulling him back to reality. Chapter 5, The Final Whistle. Jake collapsed outside the pitch, gasping for breath. The moon illuminated the field behind him, casting long shadows where the figures had once stood. He had escaped, at least for now. As he lay on the ground, the weight of what he had experienced settled on his chest. He turned to look back at the pitch, and to his shock, Mark stood at the edge, a ghostly figure in the moonlight. Jake, he called, his voice filled with sorrow. I'm sorry. I didn't want this for you. Mark, Jake whispered, tears streaming down his face. What can I do? Remember me as I was, not as I am. Live your life. Don't let them take you. Play for both of us. With those final words, Mark faded into the night, leaving Jake with the echoes of their friendship and the haunting memories of the game. Jake stumbled to his feet, determination igniting within him. He would carry Mark's spirit with him, honoring their love for the game. As dawn broke, casting golden light over the pitch, Jake walked away from the haunted ground. He vowed to tell the story, to ensure that no one else would fall victim to the shadows of the Ashford pitch. He would live, he would play, and he would remember, always.